Hi, I'm Greg from Omen Foils, and today we're going to be going over the 6 key steps to water starting with a Parawing. So this technique is really just an adaptation of the stink bug variation I taught in a previous video. So if you can already do those steps with an inflatable wing, it's going to be a lot easier to master this technique. The benefit of this technique is that you can maintain a low, controlled, stable position on your board right up until you're under sail power and moving forward, at which point the flow of water over your foil naturally provides that stability. Now, what this consistent passive stability through the water start ultimately means for you is that you're going to have to be less active in shifting your weight, which is really nice when the wind is light and even better when the conditions get hectic. Now, the first of the 6 steps is to get on your board in the straddle position and have your Parawing flying overhead with your lead hand. Now, if your Parawing is already flying while you're climbing onto the board, that's great. If it's not and it's bogged down in the water, just get on the board in a straddle position because it's a lot easier to sort out and untangle and get it launched up from there in that lead hand. Next, with your Parawing still held in your lead hand, you're going to want to grab the opposite rail of your board with your backhand and drop yourself down until both of your elbows are resting and secured on the rails of your board for extra stability. From here, we're going to use that lead hand to steer the Parawing down towards the direction you're going and rest that wingtip on the surface of the water. This technique is taken from years of teaching kiting, where you can use this and just let go of your bar to let your kite, a good kite will just hang there on its wingtip while you get in your bindings or whatever with your board. Now, a Parawing, you'll still need to keep your hand on it, but back to that theme of passive control, it is a lot less sensitive to movements when you have that stiction from the water holding down that wingtip. From here, you can pretty much just forget about the Parawing and focus on climbing onto the board, compared to if you're flying it overhead where the smallest wrist movement can flick you one side or the other and disrupt everything you're doing. Eventually, flying your Parawing is going to become second nature, but even as an experienced kiter and as someone who's had quite a bit of time on a Parawing, I still use this technique for most of my starts. The main exception being when it's super light wind and I just want to do everything I can to keep that Parawing flying. The next thing to do is to hook the backs of your feet around the rails and on top of the deck of your board. From here, it's really easy to lever up and get your knees onto the deck. And now you're in that kneeling position on the board. From here, since the Parawing is already positioned forward of you on the water surface, you're immediately going to be dragging on your knees in this new direction. Now, all you've got to do is take the Parawing, fly it overhead, and I like to give it a little bit of a power up to help bring me from that crouch kneeling position to a high kneeling position. And of course, the last step here is just to get up onto your feet and pump your board up onto foil. If you're already using this technique with your inflatable wing, I don't think there's much of a progression necessary to take it to your Parawing, aside from just repping it out a few times on dry land. And I'm convinced if you follow these steps exactly, getting onto foil with a Parawing is going to become quite routine for you quickly, provided you have sufficient wind. This brings us to the main drawback of Parawings, which is their limited range. Now, a Parawing per size has less power and ability to pump in light wind. As a wing, it's harder to fly in light wind, whereas a wing, you can just hold it up. It's never gonna stall on you and fall out of the air. And similarly, per size, it's a lot more tricky to hold down and go upwind with a really overpowered Parawing than it is with a really overpowered wing. With that being said, if you're serious about progressing your Parawinging, a great first place to start is on improving the low-end capability of each size in your range. Now, of course, we can do that through technique, and that's what this video is going to focus on, but you also want to make sure you're set up for success with the right equipment. Regarding technique, we're going to focus on board control since it's more universal. Parawing control is more dependent on the model you have. There are some Parawings that like to be pumped aggressively, similar to a wing, while others seem to generate power better when they're just held at a specific angle of attack and you're pumping your board. We can get more into specific models of Parawings and their pros and cons in the comments below, but regardless of what Parawing you have, it's going to be key to 1, have a really efficient pumping technique of your board, and 2, get on a bump and use that bump to create extra lift and drive of your foil. I really can't stress enough how big of a difference it's going to make to use even a tiny little wind bump to get up. And you actually don't want something much over waist height, because they start moving so fast they become less useful. Once you've spotted that perfect set of bumps and it's approaching you from behind, you're going to want to start building board speed through porpoising your board, similar to how you'd pump when you're on foil. Now, if you've got a well-designed board, you'll know you're doing this right when you can feel your board swimming through the water. As soon as you feel that lift from your choice wave, you're going to want to really focus pushing down on that front foot in your pumping mechanics. What that's going to do is drive the nose of your board down the wave and generate that speed and glide. And when you unweight, you're going to get that projection forward and really use that lift of the wave to glide on and get that lift on your foil. Now, here's where it's really important not to get greedy. That first time you come up on foil, you don't want to try to ride that out. Instead, continue doing this motion and slap that nose down a few more times and get that porpoise till you feel your foil level out when you're on foil and glide on that wave energy. While that might sound like a lot of work, it's very much worth it to be on a smaller board. Something like a downwind sup can indeed give you a lot more low end without using a wave, but the problem is when the conditions are actually good for parawinging, their length and trackiness makes them so difficult to use that you'll be doing a lot more struggling than parawinging. Secondly, once you're on foil, it's so much more magical to be on a compact mid-length board than 120 liter downwind sup. The larger emissary boards have been specifically designed for parawinging, which is what allows them to be downsized so aggressively. Now, the way we achieve this is through using CFD to optimize the flow over the board when the free surface is actually curved, which simulates taking off on a wave, rather than minimizing the formation of a bow wake when you're dealing with a board accelerating across flat water. For me, this was a really radical shift in my thinking early on in the parawing days, and it's been immediately apparent to anybody who's tried these boards parawinging. Being able to downsize your board like this is immediately apparent when you're on a wave. You've got better pumping efficiency, better turning response, and then when you're heading back upwind, it says you've got less parasitic wind drag on your board, you can actually make a slightly better upwind angle. But for a lot of you aspiring parawingers and people early in the journey, the biggest difference is just that they're easier to use in the conditions that you actually want to parawing in. The design of the rails, alongside the reduced total package size, is what gives those emissary boards the Omen signature drifting style correction when the board is slightly off axis from your body. Whereas a tracky board, as soon as the board points off axis, it's going to separate from your body and it's very hard to make that correction. What all this means is that as a rider, you can get that elusive 2-for-1 deal where you've got a board that's both easier to use and higher performance on wave. That's it for today. Really appreciate if you guys can take the time to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you've got any questions on parawing in general, feel free to drop a comment below, or if there's anything I missed on the Parawing Waterstart that you'd like to add for the community to see. As always, thanks for watching and being part of Omen's journey to evolve wave foiling. If you have any questions on any of our gear, drop us a line at info@omenfoils.com or check out our Discord community linked in the description below.